Welcome, everybody, and especially single people, those
Yeah.
who live alone, who are not in covenant or in any type of close relationship with another person. Dr. Jim Richards is with me today to help you discuss and pass through certain areas where you are limited. Are you ready? Welcome, Dr. Jim. Woohoo!
Hey, I'm ready. I'm ready. I hope they're ready.
Oh, yeah. It's always like putting on parachute. Go, oh, Dr. Jim is walking in. We're gonna jump.
And I love this subject, and I've taught a lot about this over the years. I have. I'm going to see if I can find. I have a series that I did back in the '90s, if I can locate it.
Okay.
And it was called The Dating Game: How to Play and Win.
Okay, dating game. Mhm.
And we got into talking about a lot of very practical things. Now,
Mhm.
now here's the thing I want everybody to understand. Our capacity to have relationships, that means to pick out people that are fit to be in a relationship with. That means to learn how to get along with people, learn how to communicate with people, learn how to stay in love, all those kinds of things. And this is a shocker for most people
Mm.
and challenging. And some of you might want to just say, I'm turning the computer off now. Well, I hope you don't. But the real truth is there is nothing that gives you insight into understanding your relationship with God more than understanding what's happening in your relationship with people.
Mm.
And no matter how much we fool ourselves, and we do fool ourselves, God's invisible.
Yes.
And so we can convince ourselves that everything is great, everything's going good, everything, but because we're not audibly hearing him, we're not sometimes not even trying to audibly hear. But the point is, when you're having a relationship with somebody that's invisible and you can't hear their voice, you
Mm.
can pretend like it's good. It's
Mm.
really not.
Yes.
You're going to be as pushy with God as you are with people.
Yeah.
You're going to be as dishonest with God as you are with people.
Mm.
You're going to be as unkind and unmerciful to
Mhm.
God as you are with people. But you don't beat yourself up with that. You say, man,
Mm.
now I understand why my walk with God hasn't been what I want it to be. And
Yeah.
so you don't beat yourself up. You just say, all right, if I don't listen to people, if I don't listen to advice from people, and I'm
Mhm.
not saying you should take advice from everybody, but if I'm not open to advice, then
Mhm.
one of the things I can be sure of, I am not open to God giving me advice.
Mm.
And so,
Huge.
you can start at that place
Mm.
about being open to people.
Mhm.
And plus, if
Mhm.
you don't know how to have a relationship with friends,
Mhm.
you will not know how to have intimate romantic relationships.
Wow, you hit so many spots right at the first step. Phew. And we could just
First
focus.
scary, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. Okay, wow, I have so many points that you basically cover within first minute. It's just ridiculous how smart
Okay.
that is. Thank you so much.
What are we going to do now? We've already covered everything.
Yeah, let's go. Just be happy. Don't
All right.
worry.
I'm happy.
So here's my first question. If I can just follow points, because
Okay.
you really twisted. I mean, twisted. You just. I feel like you spinned us in the dance, and I'm like,
Yep.
you covered everything. But I'm gonna start.
Good.
Many single people expressed to me, and I'm speaking, yeah. Somebody might say, Dr. Jim, you're married all your life. Abby, you're married. What are you guys talking about? Do you know what kind of pain it is to be alone? So let's cover first the feeling of loneliness. Some single people aren't lonely. They get involved in many things and they forget about themselves. Those are servants, beautiful, humble hearts. But we have many lonely people.
Yep.
Could you talk to them?
Well, you know, it's amazing how many scriptures
Mm-hmm.
give us the straight out answers that would solve all of our problems. But
Mm-hmm.
we read those scriptures, and because we don't really turn wholeheartedly to God and say, okay, God, teach me what this means, teach me what this looks like. We just read it and go, yeah, I know about that. In other words, I know that scripture. I can quote that scripture. I remember reading that scripture, but I'm not putting it into practice in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a real simple scripture that probably everybody almost could quote, but it is where the Bible says it's better to give than to receive.
Yeah.
Now, the next statement I'm going to make is shocking. I mean, I'm telling you, it is shocking. I don't want anybody to condemn themselves with this statement I'm going to make, but I do want them to assess themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe they can get some understanding about where they are. Anton LaVey,
Mm-hmm.
who was the founder of the Satanist Church in America, I heard him say this decades ago. He said the purest form of devil worship or
Mm-hmm.
Satan worship is not bowing down on your knees and giving your allegiance to Satan. He
Right.
says the purest form of Satanism is selfishness,
Mm.
because selfishness is in direct opposition to what God says is the number one quality that we should have,
Mm-hmm.
which is love. And
Mm-hmm.
because love is always about having value for and express being able to express that value for other people.
Mm-hmm.
So stop and think about it. Now, I'm not saying that people uh, are Satan worshipers because they're struggling with some selfishness, but stop and think. If my top priority in dating is to get my needs met, then that's all selfish.
Wow.
It's all about me. I don't care about I just want somebody. I just want somebody to make me happy. I want somebody to take care of me. I want somebody to love me. I want somebody to be kind to me. So it's a me, 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 me. And the truth is,
Mm-hmm.
I'm 74 years old, and man, I've had good relationships, bad relationships, all that. But you know, I did I used to always do marriage premarital counseling. If somebody wanted me to do their wedding, I was like, well, I will, but you got to go through premarital counseling. Now, what's interesting is in my premarital counseling and all the years of doing that, uh, I never had a couple
Mm-hmm.
who let me back up. I had one couple out all the weddings I did, all those, years, 50 years of ministry. I had one couple that didn't complete it, and they're the only one that ever went through my premarital counseling that got divorced.
Mm.
That's a pretty good track record.
Yes, one only. Wow.
But what I found was
Mm-hmm.
50% of the people that would go through my premarital counseling course would end up not getting married.
Mm.
Now, people say, well, that's a bad statistic. No, it's not, because that would have been the 50% that got married, hurt each other, cheated on each other, destroyed each other's lives, got a divorce, and were bitter for the rest of their lives.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I've always worked intimately with people, and everything about my ministry, even though I don't talk a lot about it, I'm
Mm-hmm.
always weaving in the concept that the most important thing we have to learn how to do is to have meaningful relationships. And that starts with our relationship with God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If it starts with our relationship with God, and I'm talking about a meaningful relationship. I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about, just following the rules. I'm not talking about just going to church. I'm talking about how you live, what affects your life, what is leading and guiding your life. And so once we have a relationship, a real relationship with God, a meaningful relationship with God, I'm not saying that if you're lonely, you don't have any kind of relationship with God, but I am saying if you're lonely, then you're not letting God meet that need in your life.
Yes. So, wow, that is huge. Mm-hmm.
It is. It is.
Mm-hmm. You touched incredible point where it is important for single people to look at if they are not selfish, check their lives. But we have many codependent enablers or single people who throw themselves into another ditch, the other side of coin, where all they do is serve others, forgot them about themselves, to the point, let's say, like children who take care of their sickly parents, to the point where parents eventually die at their 90s or something, and the kids have no life. They become bitter. They said, all I had to do is take care of my parents, because those are situations oftentimes, or someone else, and I didn't have a time to take care of me or get married or date, etc. Now I'm single, I'm dying alone, what to do? I've heard those situations.
Well, that's true. But now stop and think. Again, this is going to listen, when you get into relationships, you get into once you start paying attention to what the Bible says, man, you hear some scriptures that are more threatening if you don't properly translate them. They're more threatening than almost anything you read in the Bible. But stop and think about this. So the Bible tells us that if a person doesn't take care of their own family, they're worse than an infidel and has denied the faith.
Yeah. Oh man.
But before you cut your wrist, you need to understand God is never telling you that taking care of your family, whether it's your elderly parents or whether it's your kids or whatever, God never contradicts himself.
Yeah.
So remember, love, which is value, more than anything, love is about value. But when a guy came to Jesus one time and said, "What's the most important commandment?" And well, as a Jew, he knew what the most important commandment was. Most important commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might.
Yeah.
Now, stop and think about it. Since you can't see God and you might not be hearing God, then the only way to tell if you're really valuing God is the degree that you embrace him and embrace his truth, and to the degree that it bears fruit in your life. So love is all about value, but what Jesus did something that was so cool. Yeah, I love studying the way Jesus answered questions. And in that particular case, he answered the question, but then he said, "But let me bring it into context. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind." Now, if he just left it there, now stop and think. You could be a religious fanatic who was willing to kill people that disagreed with you, and you could do it in the name of loving God, and you could justify yourself, right? Yeah. But Jesus said, "But let me bring that into context. Let me show you how you can know if you really do love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul, all your mind."
Oh,
love your neighbor as yourself.
Whoa, that's too much, Jesus.
It is. But what's interesting, and another little subtle thing that's really interesting is that he said to love yourself. Now, I'm not talking about a narcissistic thing. I'm not talking about self-centeredness, but he said, you got to have the same value for yourself that you have for others.
Wow. Wow. I hope people hear this message. I hope people hear this.
So, I think about this with my kids, like I said, I'm 74, and a lot of people don't know, when I got COVID, and I had COVID 3 times, it wrecked my health. I mean, I'm telling you, all of the bad things that happen to people that get COVID happened to me. I had COVID 3 times. I had 3 heart attacks.
Right. Memory loss. Right.
Oh yeah, man. I went through 3 or 4 years of brain fog, struggling to be able to hold on to thoughts in my mind, all that kind of stuff. And so Tanya, my oldest daughter, well, all of my daughters are really very loyal to me, and I appreciate them. They're very kind to me. They all try to take good care of me. And but I'm thinking, I don't want them to lose their life taking care of me.
Wow. Yeah.
So, but the thing is, the child in this case has to be the one that has enough self-worth to say, I'm going to do these things for you that I want to do for you, but I am not giving up my identity. I'm not giving up what God may call me to do. I'm not giving my purpose. And so in other words,
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I if I'm saying that I love this person, but I'm doing it to such a degree that I have no value for me, then that's codependent. That has nothing to do with love.
Wow, thank you so much. You speak also to me. As you know, my parents lived overseas all
Yeah.
past 20 years. So thank you so much. And right now, my dad passed with me being overseas. So I understand what you're talking about. I would carry this guilt for maybe 15 years living as an immigrant here. And eventually, my mom told me what you're saying. Stop feeling guilty. I'm fine. You don't have to take care of me. Praise
Yep.
God, I'm healthy. But see, we have to understand that.
Yep.
We have to, like one time Brenda told you, I'm sick and tired of you feeling guilty of being rich. Remember? Same thing.
I've been broke. Yeah.
Well, being broke, yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay to obtain God's blessing. Same thing
Yeah.
here. It's okay to take care of yourself. I
Yep.
would be the one that would whip myself. Mom, I would constantly bother my mom. My mom says she was sick and tired of, I'm fine. She was telling me, Mom, I don't take care of you. Mom, I'm overseas. How do you feel about it? She says, fine, just live your life. This is so freeing. Dr. Jim, I'm telling you, you freed so many hearts right now.
Well, codependency is
Yes.
really interesting. Codependency was not even in the English dictionary until the either late 70s or early 80s. There was no such word.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Now, codependency, and by the way, I have a book called "Moving Your Invisible Boundaries," and that book is
Mhm.
designed to help people break free of codependent living, so they can have a meaningful relationship with God, a meaningful relationship with people. But anyhow,
Mhm.
so so when my mother was really an interesting woman. She she was a heartbroken woman.
Mhm.
My grandmother, and my grandmother had to have been mentally ill to some degree. But
Mm.
back in those days, nobody picked up on that stuff because
Yeah.
my grandmother was she was kind in some ways, but boy, she was brutal in other ways. And I don't know what her issue was with my mother, but man, she berated my mother. And now she'd help her. You know what I mean? She would help us when we didn't have anything to eat or when we didn't have clothes to wear and all that kind of stuff. But still, she always tried to make my mother feel bad.
Mhm.
And uh, my grandmother, excuse me, my mother got married probably pretty young, and her husband, which was the love of her life, was killed in World War II. And so she was just crushed. And my grandmother, I'm sure, was no help to her at all. And so out of all of that, my mother ended up getting involved with my dad, and they got married, and he was worthless. Now
How did how did your grandma accepted your father?
she hated him.
Oh,
She absolutely
okay.
hated him.
Okay.
And so my mother,
Mm-hmm.
brokenhearted, desperate probably to get away from home, away from my grandmother. She probably lied to herself and closed her eyes to a lot of the faults that my father had.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she marries my father, then she finds out that he is worthless. I mean, he was a bootlegger, and well, people in Poland know what bootlegger is.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Mm.
Okay.
We got few of those, Russian and Polish, they like to
Yeah, he was a bootlegger.
professional.
He was a low level criminal.
Mhm.
He would steal, he would lie, he
Yeah.
ran whorehouses. I mean, he just turned out to be this horrible person. And uh, so my mother then
Mhm.
got free from him, and one of the women in his stable uh, kept trying to kill my mother
No
because
way.
she wanted my mother out of the picture. And so, kind of out of desperation, my mother meets my stepfather,
Mm.
and I can remember first time I ever met my stepfather. Man, he had a good story, and he was a good looking guy. He looked like the perfect guy.
Mhm.
Again, she married him,
Oh,
and he turned out to be as sorry as my father was. Now, my mother didn't drink. Matter of fact, my mother, the closest thing I ever heard to her cussing,
Yeah.
she would go, she got really mad. She'd go, shh. And that'd be as close as you'd ever get to sit using bad language. I mean, my mother was a hardworking woman. She took care of us as good as she could. But, I can remember before the word codependent ever a thing, I remember thinking, what is wrong with my mother? And then when I got saved and became a pastor and started doing marriage counseling, I'm looking at all these women, particularly. Now, men do it too. I mean, this is not just a woman thing, but and I would be thinking, how is it you keep picking the wrong person?
Come on. Mm-hmm.
Well, the only reason you keep picking the wrong person is because
Mm-hmm.
you have a need
Mm-hmm.
to be needed or valued.
Mm-hmm.
A codependent person thinks that being needed is more important than being wanted.
Mm. Yeah.
And it's not. You need your doctor. It don't mean you like your doctor. It don't even mean you're going to pay the doctor bill, but
Yeah.
you need him when you're sick.
Right.
And that's what people do in relationships. They're looking for someone to meet a need in their lives. That need for companionship, get out of loneliness, be
Mm-hmm.
taken care of, all that kind of stuff. And so, even though I didn't know the word codependent, I spotted that really early because of watching my mother, and then all of these people that come in for marriage counseling. In every marriage counseling situation, there was always both sides of the coin of codependency,
Mm-hmm.
because there is a codependency that says, I am going to give up my life for you. I'm going to, I'm going to be a doormat for you. I'm going to do everything I can to please you. But they're not really doing it because of love. They're doing it because they need to be needed. If I make you need me, if I sacrifice enough, if I give in to you enough, if I make myself a slave for you, then you'll need me. And that's what they think that love is.
That is huge, huge, huge. Like you always tell a story how you spoke to Brenda and you ticked her off in the beginning, and then she understood what you mean.
Oh
Honey,
yeah.
I don't need you.
Well, that would make her so mad. And listen, when women would hear me tell this story in my sermons,
Right.
they would get so angry at me. I'd have women come afterwards. They say, "You're disgusting. I don't see why Brenda even stayed with you." But I tell you, Brenda came from an abused background,
Mm-hmm.
and so I treat her good. I mean, I treat her really, really well. People used to Brenda. Listen, when Brenda and I got together, she most of her life she's been a head turner. She was
Mm-hmm.
so fiercely attractive that
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, everywhere we went, if we walked by and there were men sitting around, they would turn their head.
Right.
They would watch her. She was so attractive,
Mhm.
and and thank God she was faithful and had some morals and character. Because everywhere we'd go, men would try to hit on her, and she
Right.
wouldn't give them the time of day. She never played those kinds of games.
What a woman.
Oh
Wonderful.
yeah, and so
Mm-hmm.
I knew with her background. See, so this is after we got married in 1981.
Yeah.
So this was after, man, I really zeroed in on understanding what
Mm-hmm.
codependency is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew there would be a tendency on her part to become codependent
Mm-hmm.
because I was going to treat her better than anybody she'd ever been with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would boy, we would be all romantic and hugging each other and holding hands and kissing and we would be telling each other we loved each other, and I would just say, I do love you, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for you. I will be here for you. I'll take care of you, but you need to understand something. I'm never going to need you. Oh man,
Love is coming.
I'm telling you, it would make her so mad. It would hurt her feelings. And but the other part of the story is I can remember the day. I think we were speaking She doesn't like to speak, she doesn't like to preach or teach, but she will every now and then. She'll get up, me and her do some sessions together. So we were doing some relationship sessions. I think this is the first time I ever heard her say this, and she said the best day in my life was the day I realized I did not need Jim Richards.
Right, right.
Because now you say, I'm here because I want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Oh,
not here because I need you.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right.
So this whole thing about understanding codependency and I don't want Brenda here because she needs me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want her here. So much of what happens in marriages is really prostitution.
Mm-hmm. Whoa, in marriage there is prostitution.
Yeah,
So,
because I
mm,
can't tell you how many dozens, if not hundreds of women I've talked to in this 50 plus years of ministry that were unhappy.
mm,
They despised their husband. They were abused emotionally and sometimes physically. And I said, well, why are you staying there? The Bible says live at peace as much as you can. You're not living in peace. So, you don't have an obligation to stay in an abusive relationship from a biblical point of view. Now, I know a lot of people disagree with that, but
mhm.
uh, I got a pretty good handle on the Bible, and I can tell you, God does not call us to stay in abusive situations. We can make that choice, but we're not obligated to.
Let me
So,
mention a series,
go ahead.
Divorce Full of Hatred, or some hateful divorce. You had
Hateful divorce.
hateful divorce. I'm gonna include everything you mentioned. I just want to tell
Okay.
listeners I'm gonna include everything in the description, like moving your invisible boundaries or book of codependencies, take control of your life, and hateful divorce. It will be link available to
Good.
Dr. Jim's website in my description. Please do not miss it.
So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so,
Mm-hmm.
anyhow,
Mm-hmm.
these women, so
Mm-hmm.
many times, or sometimes the men,
Uh-huh.
but so many times the women would, I mean, the guy's physically abusing them, going out and spending all the money on drugs or drinking or whatever he was doing, cheating on her. And I would say, well, then why are you still here?
Mhm.
Well, because I don't think I could survive alone.
Yeah.
They're talking about
Oh,
financially.
that's my next point. People stay, yes, because of finances. They stay
And
in.
I would tell them, I think this is kind of what, I think this is what prostitution is.
Wow.
If you're here just because of what you're getting out of this, then this is never going to work. There's never going to be peace in it. God's never going to be able to be in it. And really, you will be the obstruction to both you and your husband walking with God.
So, what is the balance? Let's say I'm trying to listen, think like a listener right now. Jim, what is the line between hoping that my broken relationship with my spouse will change, and how can I recognize to step out and leave that prostitution? What is my indicator?
Well, the thing is, if you're codependent, you can't even find the indicator.
So, what's my hope?
Well, hope, see what we tend to do in hope,
Mm-hmm.
particularly in relationships, our tendency is to put our hope in that other person's changing. You
Mm-hmm.
can't do that.
Uh-huh.
I can't have the faith for Brenda to change. Now, I don't know how far we'll get to go in this today, but
Sure.
really when the Bible, like in Ephesians chapter 5, and really all of your scriptures that you start looking at about relationships,
Yeah.
you realize that if I'm walking in love,
Mm-hmm.
then the value that I'm showing you, but I'm not degrading myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being a doormat. I'm not letting you abuse me, but I am showing as much value for you as I possibly can. I'm doing it very, very honestly. I'm not pretending like there's value where there's not.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens then, if love, see, the Bible says love never fails. Now, that doesn't mean that love always gets you what you want.
Hmm.
I love that phrase when you look at it in the Greek, it says love never ceases to be effective. So what that is saying is if anything is going to be effective. Now it's interesting, by the way, when you put in context, he says, look, you can prophesy, but prophecy doesn't always get the result you want. You can, you can speak in tongues. That's not always going to get you the result that you want. You can do all these things, and these are things that may work sometimes, they may not work sometimes. So then he consummates that by saying, but if anything's going to work, it's going to be love. And that word for love is where you have value for somebody. You find whatever you value, and you can convey to them what you value about them, but you don't make up stuff. You don't blow it up. You don't try to, you're not trying to manipulate them.
Mm-hmm.
So then what happens then, if I'm walking in love, then what's going to happen is I might be able to inspire you enough that you make the change, decide to make the changes.
Yeah. Wow.
And if you decide to make the changes for your own reasons, then it'll probably work. But if you make a change just to make me happy, then what's going to happen on the day that I make you mad?
Wow.
What's going to happen to that commitment when I hurt your feelings and don't even know I'm hurting your feelings? Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. Then you're going to say, oh, deal's off.
Yeah, my heart is broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so can I be blank? I mean,
Yeah.
super honest, thinking like a man, or even women. Listen, I've heard women expressing this. What if I'm just simply, I'm sorry, I'm following single thinking, single
Okay.
people thinking. Jim, just wasn't attracted all my life. I'm not one of those good looking man or woman. I just didn't have a luck to find a man. Nobody even follow me. So I end up staying single. What would you tell those people? And they still desire to be in relationship.
Coming out of codependency
Mm-hmm.
is built from developing your identity, your self-image, and your self-worth through who you are in Jesus. So there are beauties that are communicated through our character, through how we treat other people, that really supersede your appearance. And it's so shallow. When Brenda and I first got married, and like I said, she's always been a very, very attractive woman. I mean, for her age, she's still a very nice looking woman. But like I said, when she was young, she was a beauty. And one time we were talking, we hadn't been married very long. And she said, Jim, the honest truth is most of my life, I wish I had been born fat and ugly. And I said, well, why? And she said, well, because the only reason men were interested in me is because, well, look. Let me tell you something. You talking about an emptiness?
Wow.
When you come to realize that all somebody's interested in you is how you look, you're not going to enjoy that. You might like it at first, but that's going to feed every ungodly, unholy, negative emotion that you can ever have.
Or rich. Same thing with finances. People marry for finances.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I have honestly known people throughout my life that it never crossed my mind what they look like. Matter of fact, I very seldom ever think about what anybody looks like, because you pick up on this person is caring, this person is kind, and suddenly it just changes the way you see that person. So I would say to any single person, you want somebody that's attracted to you because you have character, not because you have money, not because you have a car, not because you are good looking. You want them to be there because of who you are as a person.
Right. I remember this guy married this young girl. They were young, in their 20s, just because she was singing, and her father was very popular. 20 years passed, divorce. She turned atheist and almost ruined his ministry, ruined his heart completely. Why? He thought he's doing the right thing, marrying someone famous. It didn't help. We don't marry people for fame.
No.
Yeah, so good,
Well,
so good.
my middle daughter, or not
Mhm.
middle daughter, second oldest daughter, I got five daughters, but my next to the oldest daughter,
Yeah.
you know, incredible singer, incredible worship leader.
Mhm.
And so the problem was, and she would go out and do meetings with me. And so so she led worship here in local church, but sometimes she would go and do meetings. And
Mhm.
so all these guys everywhere wanted to get close to her
Mm.
because she was on the platform. And
So,
some of them want to get closer because they want to get close to me
wow, look at
because I
that.
had a successful ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty devastating for her to recognize why a
Mm.
lot of these guys want to get close to her.
Mm, 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 mm-hmm. So sad. So how did you help her deal with this? How did you help her deal with that? If a guy came,
Well, that's always a challenging thing because at a certain stage of life, you're kind of starting to say, I'm I'm wanting to be with somebody and that sort of thing. And so it gets pretty challenging
mm,
to kind of walk them through these things. And at the end of the day,
come on.
they cannot rise to uh, the things that will make for a great life
Mm-hmm.
beyond their level of self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
If
Come
they
on.
don't have self-worth, they cannot make those kinds of decisions because they don't feel good enough about themselves. If you don't feel good enough about yourself, then you don't feel like you're attractive to anybody.
Come on. Come on. Yes, so, so true. Okay, now, what about if people say, I burn in lust? Jim, I just need a woman. What could you talk to men? I need men. I can be
Uh,
holy and need nothing and blah blah, but I need woman. How else am I going to satisfy my physical sexual need?
well, again, man, that's a horrible way to start trying to find a relationship because it's all about you. It's
Mm,
all about gratifying the lust of your flesh. Feeding some part of you that says, even if I have to violate God's word, even if I have to destroy my relationship with God, even if I'm going to lose what God's called me to do with my life, even if I'm going to destroy friendships around me, I've got to gratify this lust. No, you don't. I'm not saying there's not challenges there, but
mhm,
I'm saying
mhm.
you can deal with any lust of the flesh. Any of this, there's seven lusts of the flesh: lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, which has five components to it, and then the pride of life.
Yes. Mhm,
And so God would not tell us to deal with these things if it was impossible for us to deal with them.
mhm,
But
mhm,
here's the thing about the lust of the flesh. The lust of the flesh, anything that is part of the flesh.
mhm.
Stop and think about it. When I talk about the flesh, I'm saying, okay, like you got these five senses. You got sight, you got smell, you got hearing, you got touch, you got taste.
Mhm.
So this means that anything that the flesh is going to do for you, it's going to happen through the physical workings of your body.
Mhm.
So I smell an aroma that I like. So what happens? I smell this, and
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, these endorphins begin to get released, and so then it affects my nervous system. So that's still part of my flesh, and then my nervous system sends messages to my brain. The brain is part of your flesh. And so your brain then starts imagining ways that you can gratify this. And so it starts there. People don't think that imagination, they don't think that's evil. But it can be evil. It can be very evil. Because actually, Jesus, when teaching about adultery, warns that adultery, it happens in your heart before it ever happens in your life.
Mhm.
And so when we're thinking about gratifying, this is what the Bible talks about: the mind that's set on the flesh or the mind that's set on the spirit. So when I'm thinking about gratifying this and I'm imagining this, then what's going to happen? I'm going to get closer and closer to the fire. I'm going to, for a man, he's going to start watching porn. He's going to start masturbating. He's going to start all this kind of stuff, which means he's really not doing anything to deal with these issues.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to find a way to gratify the lust of the flesh without getting into a destructive situation. Well, you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's the thing about the lust of the flesh. This is the real kicker. Anything that comes to you through your flesh, because like I say, it's translated, your eye, your vision, your smell, whatever, it's translated from these sensory perception things through your nervous system into your brain. And so really the rush that you feel is hormones and chemicals. And that's where it's all coming from. Now, the problem with hormones and neurochemicals and biochemicals and all this kind the problem is every time you stimulate those senses, it takes more to stimulate them the next time because it's an addiction. It's a physical addiction.
Wow. Even sex.
Even sex.
Hmm.
And now what's amazing, sex doesn't have to be that way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Sex can be enjoyable. It should be enjoyable. Mm-hmm. Sex is something that is supposed to be so powerful between a man and woman that it will bond them together through thick and thin. And it's something that they share with each other. They don't share with anybody else. And so it's supposed to create a bond that will give you hope and fulfillment, whatever, for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. So go ahead.
Can I interrupt? I'm sorry. Keep your train thought. Keep your train thought.
I am.
You reminded me of this one Baptist pastor when I was growing up in Poland. He would teach, guys, if you have a problem with your wife, you fight, take her to bed. Everything will be resolved. He would always.
Well, I wish it was that simple, but
because he resolved every fight through sex.
That's really pretty sick. I mean, it really is. It's really. Now, he was probably being facetious. He was probably kind of.
Maybe. I was a little kid and I heard him like, what? What the heck?
So the thing is you start down that path and you've got an addiction. And it takes more every time to stimulate that addiction, which means, okay, then I'm going to go from imagining it to watching pornography, to masturbating, to cheating.
Cheating. And then end up sleeping with many women. Yep. Wow. That's so huge. Thank you. What about, okay, I'm just asking you simple questions. You're so deep. You're so good. What about men who says there are no attractive women in the church? You kind of covered that with attraction when I asked you, feeling unattractive. But now the other side, what if there are not attractive men and women start looking for on the dating apps? And it became, again, I don't want to negate dating apps, but I want to hear you.
Well, and we were actually talking about this before we started recording. The thing is, if that is your top priority, what somebody looks like, you're never going to be happy because you're choosing a person for all the wrong reasons.
Say that again and say it loud.
Well, and it's true. If honestly, I wasn't attracted to Brenda because of her looks. I wasn't. I'll tell you what attracted me to Brenda was the way she was with kids. Watching how patient she was with kids. And then I didn't know her very well and knew her from a distance, but then watching how hospitable she was and how willing to serve and help people that she was. And so it was all of these character traits. And so it was almost like one day, when I started to realize I had feelings with her, one day I looked at her and I thought, dang, she's good looking too. But that was the last factor for me. It wasn't the first factor.
But what about the fact that they say man, first thing he sees is body, women body?
Well, let me just say this. The moment we start saying men do this and women do this, we're lost.
Okay, sorry.
There is no, I mean, I'm not getting on to, I'm not, but I know what you're saying. And I know that's what people say. But listen, men and women do the same things.
Mhm.
And if you start stereotyping, well, women do this and men do this, you can never help people who have problems. You can never help couples
Mhm.
because it's, you know, a man that's doing this,
Mhm.
I just got to deal with what he's doing and what he believes,
Mhm.
not the fact that he's a man.
Yeah.
Now, we may express those things a little differently
Mhm.
because, you know, in different social environments, men can get by with things maybe that women can't get by with, or women can get by with things. But anyhow, you never make it about man and woman. You just make it about what does the Bible say, what's the truth, and what do I need to do in my own heart. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things that we you were so adamant about here in Impact Ministries, and what we do is you can solve and overcome any problem,
Mhm.
if you, from a biblical perspective, you engage with God from your heart,
Yeah.
not from your mind.
Yeah.
And most people don't know how to do that. They've never been taught how to do that. As a matter of fact, you know, back at the in the early church, you know, the apostolic church, they taught what Jesus taught. Uh, uh, but after the apostles began to die off, then we start easing into the dark ages, where they start abandoning the gospel that the apostles taught, and the scriptures that the apostles taught, and the things that Jesus taught. They start abandoning that, and they replace it with a tradition, with religion, with all kinds of things.
Mhm.
And one of the things that the early church, I'm not talking about the apostolic church, one of the things that the early church did not want, and
Mhm.
they deliberately
Mhm.
uh, created doctrine to make the believer feel like that he or she could not
Mhm.
connect to God by themselves. They had to go through a priest or go through the church, because the church wanted absolute control over everything you believed, everything you thought, everything you was praying about, everything you were doing. They did not want you. And history shows us there were a lot of things that were very effective in the apostolic church, that as the church began to become more religious, they made people stop. They made people stop doing things.
Mhm.
You know, one of the really interesting things, for example, uh, many people, as a musician, I'm sure you're familiar with the solfeggio
Mhm.
uh, 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 scale.
Mhm.
Well, originally, the solfeggio was the international scale for music.
Mhm.
And one of the things that they began to realize is by utilizing those particular notes, it would help people relax and get into more of a meditative state.
Wow. Didn't know.
And so they would have encounters with God without a priest being involved. Man, the church could not stand that.
Mhm.
And so they actually changed and went to the A standard.
Wow.
And when they went to the A standard, it changed the frequency of the notes just enough
Mhm.
that it didn't harmonize with how we were created. And so instead of people getting connecting to God in their heart, they just kind of found themselves singing songs. But that was done deliberately because the church did not want you to know that you could connect to God without them.
Codependencies. I see. I see.
Oh, the church, actually, much of the church world, even much of the church world today, I hate to say it, and
Mhm.
I'm not saying all churches are this way,
Mhm.
but most churches
Mhm.
thrive on codependency. They want you to need the pastor or the elders or whatever, and
Wow.
because that'll keep you loyal.
So now you answered my question. I'm still going to ask, even though you could literally repeat what you just said. Single people oftentimes express that they are feeling as a worst class in the church or any big organization. Why? Because everything is aimed and focused towards families. You see
Yep.
family activity, family event, family, bring your kids, ta 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 ta. But you're right, it's codependency. You are searching to satisfy yourself through church, through a single group, through this, through apps. right? Is that?
Well, one of the things that the church has done, and
Mhm.
I don't know how much of it is malicious. I'm
Mhm.
not saying all of it's malicious. Some people, sometimes leaders do things the way they do them just because that's what was modeled to them. And they
Mhm.
don't realize how deadly some of these things are.
Mhm.
But one of the things that we did early on in our local church was I made it real clear. I said, I know that I'm supposed to get up here and say that we're a family. Well, we're not your family. I just tell them,
Mhm.
we are a spiritual family,
Yeah.
but there are things in your life that are supposed to happen between you and your family. And the moment you start looking to the church to
Mhm.
meet the needs that are supposed to be met by your family, you're
Mhm.
going to have codependent expectations.
Wow.
And we're never going to be what your blood family is going to be to you, probably.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get mad and you're going to think that we are doing you wrong or letting you down.
Wow.
And so from there, I would say, so when people we would do a thing every year called building the body. And
Mhm.
every year we would just, because we'd have people getting saved and they're coming in. And so every year it's like, what does it mean to be a part of a body of believers? And
Mm.
so, and so one of the things I would emphasize to them is like, we're not going to have activities every night of the week. We are not going to have Sunday morning church, Sunday night church, Tuesday night, Monday night visitation, Tuesday night prayer meetings, Wednesday night midweek service. And we're not going to do that because what that is an attempt to replace your life with religious activities.
Mm.
What we don't want church to replace your life. We want church to sustain your life, uphold you.
So you could get the biblical skills and principles and move
Yep.
it back to your life, bring it back home to your
All right.
marriage. Really, wow, so good. Wow.
Even in marriage, though, even in marriage, I was always real protective of like husbands and wives need time. They
Yeah.
need date nights. They need to have fun. They sometimes they need time for each other. They need time for each other and their kids. And so, how can that happen if you've got so many church meetings that the only thing you got time for is to go to church?
Wow. What about if somebody brought Acts 2:44 through 46 and all believers were together and shared everything? They literally met on the New Testament church. They met almost on daily basis in their homes. I think that applies more to you than this doctrine, oh, see, we should be at church every day almost. Right?
Well, what's interesting about that?
Mhm.
We don't connect the dots in the Bible.
Come on, say
I
it.
mean, we'll read something like that and really see the early church actually tried communism because they
What?
put all of their money and laid it at the feet of the apostles
Mm.
and shared everything in common. So they violated biblical principles of meritocracy, where the lazy people would not, they wouldn't work, but they wanted to share in what everybody else had. That's exactly what communism is about. Well, so what we don't read is we don't read that just a couple of chapters later,
Mhm.
the believers in Jerusalem were starving to death because that didn't work. And they had to send the apostle Paul.
Oh.
This was before he became an apostle. They had to send him to
Mm.
Jerusalem to carry offerings to the church at Jerusalem because they were really functioning in communism.
Wow.
And
That-
so again, the church is not here to replace life. The church is here to build us up so that we can enjoy God and enjoy life, enjoy our marriages, enjoy our kids. I'll tell you, my kids have pretty much always been my closest friends,
Mm.
other than Brenda. I
Mm.
love spending time with my kids. We have fun together. We laugh together. We enjoy life together. And when I want to talk to them about God, I just sit down with them and just start talking to them, and they sit and listen, and we share things and ask questions and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying we've got a perfect family, but I'm saying we have a family that's built around something that's very authentic and very real.
And your dog, Hooch.
Well, yeah, he's crossed on over, but
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry,
he,
just like
he he
Adam.
he was that was kind of interesting. Is like he was the middle of our family. I mean, everybody in the family loved hoots, and they always wanted to play with them. They always wanted to take them to their house. And so we enjoy life.
Yes, guys, the link to Hooch video, you must see it. It's a must see, will be in the description. Dr. Jim reached like almost 400,000 views on it. So
Yeah.
it's really worth hearing about the animals, your dog and owner, the friendship, everything that Dr. Jim is talking about.
If you don't care, let me go back and let's make sure we get a clear definition of what codependency is.
Please do. Please do.
And let me say this. Everybody has some codependent tendencies. Sometimes they come and go because of maybe the degree of insecurity we have in a situation. We might not realize we step into some codependent things. I've done it as a parent, and we've all done it. For example, let's say that you have a kid that's maybe going through some really serious problems. And man, you're really, really concerned for. And then you start doing things for them that they should be doing for themselves.
Oh yeah, dangerous.
And so what happens is then, instead of you teaching them how to walk with God for themselves, instead of teaching them how to make good decisions, you intervene and you try to meet the needs in their life that only God can meet. Yeah. And so you alienate your children from God, and actually you alienate them from you. Wow. You teach them to be dependent on you. So anyhow, codependency, when the concept first came out, I think there was a lady, I think her name was Melanie Beatty.
Yes.
And if you read her books, you just think everybody in the world is codependent. Because every symptom of codependency, you're thinking, dang, I got some of all of these. But the first concept of codependency started in the substance abuse community. So my mom was what would have been a classic codependent. My mom didn't drink. She didn't smoke. She didn't cuss. I mean, she was a moral, ethical woman. She didn't lie. She didn't cheat. She didn't steal, none of that stuff. And interestingly, my mother, I rarely ever heard her say anything bad about anybody. And I nearly never heard her complain. It didn't matter how hard our lives were. It doesn't matter if we didn't have a single thing to put on the table and eat. My mother never complained. And so the result of that is that, of course, we didn't complain, but you look at that and you think, here's a strong, independent woman that can function, man. How does she get into these situations? Well, so the first concept of codependency was you are attracted to people who are dependent on alcohol or drugs or something, some addiction. So you're not an addict yourself. You don't have any addictive tendencies, but you find yourself attracted to people who have addictions. And so you become a co-dependent with them. They're dependent on it, but then you become dependent on being with that person who has that addiction. Now, why would we do that? Well, usually low self-worth would say, this person will need me. I can be their savior. I can help them. I can make them feel loved. I can pull them out of this addiction. I can save their life, whatever. And so it ends up being something incredibly, incredibly wrong. So over the years, as the study of codependency evolved, the definitions started changing. And so ultimately, from a biblical point of view, and I'm not going to go through all the iterations of those changes, but from a biblical point of view, I defined codependency, and I was the first one to do this. I define true codependency is when we look to someone or something outside of us to meet a need inside of us that only God can meet. So we're becoming dependent on money, fame, job, status, our looks, sex, whatever, our business, whatever. But we're depending on, we're substituting, attempting to substitute what only God himself can do. We're substituting it with other things. Therefore, we become dependent on all those other things and really kind of push God out.
Can I give an example?
Yeah.
Outside of a box, and you tell me if that is accurate. here is single person that has that is adult, that has sibling, that has children. Now that sibling that has children say, hey, listen, you're single, you could help me with kids, could you watch them? And that single person ends up being enabler, or
Yep.
even yeah, I think so. So you agree with this enabler, and ends up watching those kids, let's say 5 days a week, just because she is single and she feels guilty, and she becomes that enabler. She feels
Yeah.
guilty and she wants to pour out. Look how much needs she takes out of it outside of God. I'm gonna have at least my nephew, my niece, to pour my love, my inheritance, my everything into them
Yep.
because I don't have my own kids.
Well, and the thing is, once you start meeting needs for people that they are responsible for themselves, the Bible is really clear that you actually destroy them.
So grandmas, grandpas who take care of kids for their own kids, grandkids for the sake of their own kids, they are codependent, and they.
Well, I'm not necessarily. They can be.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, as a grandparent, if one of my kids abandoned one of their kids or wasn't, taking care of them, I would bring that kid in, but I would not bring that kid in and begin to pet them and pamper them and feel sorry for them and do things for them out of pity,
Mhm.
because I would be an enabler, and I would be teaching them not to stand up for themselves. I'd be teaching them not to be responsible. I'd be teaching them not to trust God, but to trust me.
I see. So the way we raise them is so important.
Well, we talked about this in a session we did a year or two ago, but it's one of these things that applies. Remember, there is a universal law, and the universal law is the law of the seed. That's why I
Mhm.
have my book, The Immutable Law of the Seed. It is the most significant spiritual law that we must understand.
Mhm.
It works in relationships. It works in how you manage your emotions. It works in your walk with God. It works in your prayer life. And the crazy thing about the law of the seed is you don't have to have faith for it to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just one of them things that works. When you go out and plant a seed, I have a above ground garden.
Mhm.
And Brenda and I, we every year, it's not a big garden, but every year we get a lot of vegetables out of that garden. We enjoy it. We like it. I like going out there and just sticking my hands in the dirt and doing something real. You know what I mean?
Yes, you gotta do it.
And so when I plant a seed, like now, a lot of people in Poland may not know what this is, but in the South there is a particular vegetable we really like, okra. Do you eat okra?
Okay, let me check what okra is.
It's a green pod about that long, and man, it is incredible if you know how to cook it. And so I don't go out here to my little shed where I keep my seeds and
Mhm.
go out like, well, you know what? I don't have any okra seed, but I got some watermelon seed. So I'm gonna take this watermelon seed, I'm gonna stick it in the ground, and I'm gonna pray over it that it's gonna produce okra.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
no, that's the stupidest thing you ever heard of.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
so the law of the seed says whatever kind of seed you plant, whether it's thoughts, whether it's emotions, whether it's actions, whether it's communication, whatever kind of seed you plant in any arena of your life,
Yeah.
it's going to produce that kind of seed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I have to tell you Polish okra. It says piżmian jadalny.
That don't sound a bit good.
Repeat it. Okay, back to you. Back to you. It's just funny name that.
So So in the law of the seed, this gets into sowing and reaping.
Mm-hmm.
Sowing and reaping is not where we sow something and God causes us to reap. So like when you plant a seed in your garden, God don't say, let me see what I'm gonna make that come out to be. No, you just plant a seed and it grows. It's
Yeah.
just that simple.
It's programmed
Yeah.
from creation. Mm-hmm.
Oh, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get into this when you start getting into sowing and reaping, you get into um, uh, you get into the concept of giving and receiving, because giving and receiving is a form of sowing and reaping.
Yes.
So what's interesting now, the word give and receive is what's called a palindrome.
Mm-hmm.
And a palindrome is a word that whether you spell it frontwards or backwards, it's pronounced the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, when there's a palindrome
Mm-hmm.
and a word is pronounced the same, then in Hebrew you look at, well, wait a minute, what is the meaning of it? And you can tell which you can tell based on structure, if you're saying the word and it means to give,
Mm-hmm.
or if you're saying the word and it means to receive.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells you that that is a continuum.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a continuum is where something can flow both ways at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like electricity flowing through AC current. It's
Yeah.
going both ways.
Mm-hmm.
So so the concept there is that of course that giving in fact produces the capacity to receive.
Yes.
Now, what happens though is this: God taught us that in giving and our giving, understanding giving, everything we need to know to not be codependent, to be healthy, starts with how to have a relationship with God. So we think that when we give, that draws God near to us, but it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. It draws
As a
us.
matter of fact, when you really start looking at it, one of the Hebrew words for offering means draw near. And
Mm-hmm.
so we take that to say, if I give God an offering, he's going to draw near to me. No, that is not what it means. It means that we give God offerings because we want to draw near to him. He's not the one that has left us. He's
Mm-hmm.
not the one that quit on us. He's not the one that gave up on us. We pull ourselves away from him. He never I love the way the Amplified Bible says, I'll never leave you. I'll never fail you. I'll never forsake you. So
Mm-hmm.
that means that even under the old covenant, if you brought an offering, you bring an offering because you were trusting the promise that God made that he hadn't left you.
Mm-hmm.
Even though your heart condemns you and you think he's left and he's distant. I got a letter from a guy just yesterday. I got to send out an answer. And this guy just talks about how that he got sick and some things started going wrong in his life and he got worse and worse and worse, and it affected him emotionally and mentally. And before long, he's to the place where God had left him. It's like, no, I hadn't said this to him yet, but I'm going to. God didn't leave you.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
You just didn't believe the truth. He told you he'd never leave you. He told you he'd never forsake you. But you're saying, God, you're a liar. You left me why? Because I didn't feel you.
Mm, my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in this concept, actually in the Old Testament, when you brought your sacrifice to the tabernacle, there would be one of the priests would meet you at the door and talk to you about what kind of offering you're going to bring. So if you're going to bring a sin offering, or it doesn't matter what kind of offering, the question they were going to ask you is, okay, so do you believe, that God's going to hear you? Do you believe his promise about you coming? And if you weren't in faith, you couldn't give your offering. So they don't tell us that part of it.
Wow.
They
Yeah.
turn it into works. It's like, I'm bringing my offering to convince God to come back to me.
Mafia exchange. Uh-huh.
You're right. So in this concept of giving and receiving and offerings, you understand that if I give something, let's say if I give you a gift,
Mm-hmm.
and and I don't know if you're going to appreciate the gift. I don't know what you're going to do, but I look at that gift, and if it's something that was valuable, that cost me a lot,
Yes.
then what I'm doing when I give you that gift, I am to a certain degree putting a value on our friendship.
Yes.
Our friendship then is worth the value of this gift. So what happens is
Mm-hmm.
I actually draw nearer to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I don't know if you're going to draw nearer to me.
Mm-hmm.
So when we give to other people,
Yes.
we actually love them more and care more about them because of the whatever it is we're giving them. But that doesn't mean that they reciprocate. And so, go ahead. I'm sorry. I
No,
see.
no, no, please finish because I will interrupt. I'm
So,
about to.
so the codependent person is saying, I need for you to need me. Now, in every codependent relationship, there's a passive codependent that wants to be needed, and then there's a dominant controlling codependent that they only feel important if they get to control you. But the passive person feels value because that person needs them.
What about single people who live in fear? I've been giving, like you said, to draw near, but I fear I'm gonna die alone because I'm single.
Well, again, let me move down this a little bit, and then maybe I can answer that question.
Yeah, come
So,
back. Mhm,
so when parents, for example,
mhm,
do things for their kids
mhm,
that the child should be doing for themselves,
mhm.
the parent just they don't understand, why do they always feel the need to protect that kid? Why do they always the need grows to save them from themselves? The need grows to take more care of them. Why? Because every time you do something for them, it bonds you to them, but it doesn't bond them to you.
That's right. Yeah.
What, with our kids very young, and me and Brenda kind of had it was a little bit of a tension between me and her. It's like, look, the only way our kids will ever have a bond with us as a family is if they have responsibilities. If they
Yeah.
never have responsibilities, then they don't fall in love with the family.
Mhm.
They get selfish and self-centered, and they think everybody should take care of them.
Mhm.
And so our kid, I remember Christy was about, oh man, maybe she was probably about 12.
Mhm.
And at that time our yard was 3.5 acres.
Mhm.
So we had a 3.5 acre yard.
Mhm.
Tanya was about 14, going on 15. And so, I sat down with him. I said, okay. I said, now I'm going to help you from, and when you have needs in your life, I'm going to be there to help you. But you're going to learn to pay your own way. And so I said, so here's the deal. And I gave them a list of jobs that they could have. And I said, now you just pick what you want to do, whichever one you think you would enjoy the most. And I'm going to pay you. And that's going to be, you're not going to get allowance anymore. I'm going to pay you. You'll have your own money. You can make your own decisions about how you spend it.
Mhm.
Christy, at about 12 years old, chose to mow this 3.5 acre yard with a push mower
Wow.
because she liked being outside.
Uh-huh.
Tanya chose to go to work in the office. And over
Mhm.
the years, all 5 of my kids have worked with us in ministry because I wanted them to have a connection to what I do and what our family does.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
knew the only way to build that kind of bond was if they learned to serve.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, so the thing is, what codependent people do for other people usually makes those people despise them and not respect them.
Look at that.
And then they make bigger sacrifices. So they get more attached, but that person has more and more disdain for them.
Yeah. Then they ask why I'm not respected. I do so much. We hear
Yep.
this song all the time, over and over. People sing it. I've done so much for you, and you're such a thing. That is why.
Yeah.
That is why, because you do things for them. Preaches to a choir.
So all of these things that we're talking about what about this, what about that, what about this, it really just comes down to I have got to have a relationship with God where I'm not driven by needs. Remember, all sin starts with feeling lack.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if I feel lack in my
Mhm.
relationships, remember, every seed bears out its own kind. So what's going to motivate me then to put together a relationship is going to be lack. Well, guess what happens? If the seed that you're planting in your current relationship is coming from lack, that relationship will more and more and more and more produce lack
Mhm.
because it's the seed that you're planting.
Yes. Yes. Come on. Wow.
So,
Wow.
you can have great relationships, but if you're not whole yourself,
Mhm.
you you will never be able to
Yeah.
recognize who that other person is. You'll never understand what kind of person they are. You'll never be able to grasp what they really want from you and what you want that relationship to be. And it will never, ever, ever be healthy.
Wow. Let's leave pause. It is good. It is so good. And I hope that every listener takes time to
Well,
listen, to think. We need to give a room in our brain to think. This is so good. What?
that they can rush, by the way, and get married. And when those people, I said 50% of the people went through my premarital counseling end up not getting married.
Mm.
And so when they, and you know what? The premarital counseling wasn't all that good. My premarital counseling was designed to do one thing: get people communicating about things that they haven't communicated about. Solve the problems before you get into a committed relationship. And so, and so, they'd be all whiny and like, well, man, we're not going to make it. I thought us going through this premarital counseling was going to help us have a great marriage. I said, no, it's just going to make you live in the truth. I said, so here's the deal. Your options are this. You're to a place where y'all, both of you, realize that you shouldn't get married. So you can go ahead and get married and get a divorce and live in pain and sorrow and anger and hatred and all that kind of stuff. Or you can work out some things in your life, and while you're making that journey of walking with God, he will bring you to somebody that you can have a meaningful relationship with. So would you rather get married now, get bitter and angry, go through a divorce, end up on your own trying to raise kids by yourself? Or would you rather right now be on your own and spending this time to develop your heart with God?
Wow. So good. It is so giving so much peace. Mhm. And freedom, freedom. Just trust God.
Yep.
Trust God. And all that you talk about, the foundation is to trust God.
Yep.
I know myself, I don't want to just quote now some stories and say, but so
Right.
many times I did something out of lack of patience,
Oh
lack of
yeah.
trusting God. I rushed things because I thought I have a better solution than God.
Yep. Ain't that something?
Wow. Dr. Jim, what would you tell? How would you speak right now if you had in front of you a widower or widow or divorcees that experience transition from being with someone for years and now entering and have to learn new life as a single person?
Well, I would teach them the same thing I would teach a teenager.
Okay.
Number one, seek God with all your heart. Learn how to have a relationship with God. Learn how to hear his voice. Learn who you are in Jesus so you have good self-worth. And really, if we take care of those core, see, I remember one year we had this guy that he had a master's degree in theology. He had been in the ministry for years, and he came to our school because he said, "Man, I've heard some teachings come out of here, and I need this." And so he's already got like I say, he got a bachelor's degree. He's got a master's degree in theology. He comes to our school, and so he turns out to be the valedictorian for his graduating class. And so when he got up and gave his speech, one of the things he said, all of my life in the ministry,
Mhm.
I saw thousands of problems, different kinds of problems that people have. And so I believed I had to find thousands of different answers for every problem. And he said, I've discovered going to school here that no matter what the problem is, there's really only one answer. And that answer is to connect to God for yourself in your heart And everything that you need for life, godliness, happiness, fulfillment, is going to emerge from your heart. And remember, your heart controls your emotions. It controls everything about peace and joy and happiness, all those kinds of things. And so if you get all of that taken care of, then suddenly you look at the world and the people around you, and you even look at yourself differently, and you realize, you know, I have some desires that I want to fulfill, but I don't need anything or anyone to be happy.
Wow, congratulations. And he won the game.
Yep.
Wow. Dr. Jim, in closing, what would you tell, how would you comment 1 Corinthians 7:7 that says, Paul says, Apostle Paul, sometimes I wish everyone were single like me, a simpler life in many ways.
Uh,
But
well,
celibacy is not for everybody. Then he goes on.
yeah, he pointed that out, and he basically he says not for everybody, and he didn't say God wanted you to be single. Matter of fact, God wants us to be in committed relationships. He says it's not good for man to live alone.
Genesis. Mm-hmm.
So that's a God thing. But the two factors that come in are this. If I could, particularly if I have if I know my divine purpose, then the honest truth is I can get as much fulfillment from following my calling and living that divine purpose, staying connected to God. I can get as much peace and happiness and joy in life as I could whether I am or not in a relationship.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then the second thing is not everybody has that capacity or willingness to say, you know what, I'm just going to give my life to the things of the Lord and let it go. So Paul was saying exactly what you said. He's not saying God wants this for you, but he said, I am saying your life would be much simpler. You'd have much less conflict. And that doesn't mean he's putting down marriage. It just means he's saying for me to focus on what God's called me to do, I really can't be where I have a lot of other obligations.
Wow. Wow. Depends on our responsibility, on position, what we have carry. Wow. I remember, I cannot quote you exactly how you said it, but when you were teaching about marriage, or maybe that was hateful divorce teaching, he said, you've got to choose between fighting with your spouse or fighting the giant of loneliness. Which one do you think you could handle better?
Yeah.
In single, yes, you're going to experience that, but which giant is bigger?
No.
Which one takes your life faster?
But I want all of our I want all of our people to understand they got to make that choice. They've got to make the choice. Am I going to win the battle over loneliness, or am I going to get into a relationship that if I get into it for codependent reasons, it's not going to be good. There's going to be a lot of fighting. There's going to be a lot of conflict. Who knows what's going to happen? So, which battle do you really want to fight? Jesus said, always count the cost of everything, every decision you're about to make. Count the cost. Now, myself, I would rather be alone in a cave than be in a relationship where there's always conflict.
Monk Jim Richards.
That's right.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think everybody agrees with you here. Oh, wow. You know, it's loaded again, loaded, and I'm gonna listen to it a few times to get exactly everything that you said. That's why I love staying quiet, because I know I'm gonna listen to, and I don't want to interrupt you because I'm gonna be mad at myself for interrupting your thoughts. Even somebody said once in comments, Abby, why did you say something? He was going somewhere that he forgot it. So I vow to everybody, I'm gonna stay more quiet so Dr. Jim could finish his train of thoughts.
Well, you always have good questions, so I always welcome you jumping in.
Thank you for your comfort. But yes, I appreciate, with all that being said, I appreciate your wisdom. You speak to single people as if you were, so you know what? You have ability to understand people's pain. And that's huge. You come from their view. It's not like, here I am, I read so many books, I'm going to tell you what I know.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being real.
Well, thank you for letting me share this with people. And I just see we shared some hard stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to make this hard. The hard stuff we shared was you will either make this decision and connect with God, come into a place of peace, or you will make any one of these other decisions over here, and it will never be easy.
Mm, mm,
And as a matter of fact, you might actually create a person that can't be happy by themselves. There's a friend that I have, man, he's been one of my best friends for 20 or 30 years. And I've always liked him. I liked his wife, but his wife has this belief that it's the husband's job to make her happy.
Yeah, that's the worst thing ever. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that is bizarre. Because the real truth is the moment you put somebody else in charge of your happiness,
Mm-hmm.
you have surrendered your life. You've actually moved God out of being the one that can lead you and influence you and work in your life. And so I've known, like I said, they've been my friends for 20 or 30 years, and I feel my heart hurts for her because in all the years I've known, she's never been happy. And she's angry because her husband is not making her happy. She feels like that's his responsibility.
Wow,
And
wow.
I've had numerous conversations with her. Other counselors have had numerous conversations with her. But that's no different than the single person that is saying, if I could find the right person, they would make me happy. You've already set that thing up for failure. So don't do that. Make up your mind that you can have joy and peace and happiness and fulfillment in God. Find that, and you'll find everything else you need.
Amen. Amen. I feel sorry for people who are doing this. God
Yeah.
forbid they lose their spouse, that they suck everything out of them to fulfill them.
Oh,
What if you lost them? You're gonna be wrecked
oh
when you're
yeah.
single. Find yourself in God. Oh man. Wow. So good. So freeing. Thank you, Dr. Jim. Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome job. Until I see you next time.
All
Right?
right. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate. And I have a wedding to go play.
Here's my thing about weddings is that I would rather do funerals than weddings because at least when they die, you know they're going to stay dead. But when they get married, you have no clue if they're going to stay married.